Alright. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Metagame Episode 2. Today I have a bunch of different guests. It's going to be super awesome. With me, I have TheSambasti again from Episode 1, who, of course, is the founder of Limelight eSport, the website of which I am involved. Next to him, I have Eric Collins, who I'll explain in a minute, comes in much later in this video, actually. And then I have Danny Lorenzo. There he goes. He disappears to start the show properly. I have Danny Lorenzo, who is also a member of Limelight eSport, as well as Alex Nieves, who is one of my real-life friends and fellow gamers. So we actually have recorded the show already and managed to lose the first half, not the first half, sorry, the first minute and a half of the show because I failed miserably. So we are just kind of re-recording our little intro here to let you know who's on the show. Eric Collins actually comes in mid-show, and I explained that in the original intro, but he joined us about halfway through. So we're just going to jump right in. It does start with Danny kind of in mid-sentence, but don't worry, you'll catch on really quick. And we're talking about skill levels in games and all kinds of stuff, and we get completely derailed, and it's a fun time, so just watch it and let us know what you think. But here it goes.
After it would randomly, ruin my kill streak. Therefore, due to RNG, I was, getting taken out, and I couldn't get my nuke, so it was very frustrating and COD rage-inducing, like it is to all COD players. But,
right.
Just the fact that I like to play games that have as minimal random stuff happen to me while I'm playing. I think that's a large part of it. Also, just having skill in a game makes you feel like you're more confident in your game. Like, you can walk up to someone or whenever you're in a discussion and be like, yeah, I'm actually pretty good because I know that I'm pretty good because the game actually takes skill to be good at it. You can't just be like, oh, I'm good at it, and then like, yeah, but it's Call of Duty, everyone's good at it. Like, there comes a point that it's like that skill level isn't as high, so I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, would you say, because in the last episode, we talked about how people think that they're skilled at a game like Call of Duty when they're really not, because it has such a low skill ceiling. But then again, you see Call of Duty at MLG, so like, what's up there? What's going on there?
So I don't know why we always end up discussing Call of Duty.
Let's talk about Halo instead.
But we do. Well, I actually think I'm going to stick with Call of Duty because that does end up demonstrating my point very well. So the first thing is, I said earlier I disagreed with you on the WoW Arena and why WoW Arena is not an esport. I tried watching WoW Arena once at Danny's recommendation. He recommended like some specific game from the caster he really liked.
That was me.
I'm sorry.
Danny just got done saying he doesn't play WoW. I don't want to play WoW.
Well, I was just thinking about what I was going to say rather than what he was saying, and all I heard was COD. So
right.
Anyway, so the thing about that was, I tried watching this game of WoW Arena, and I saw a bunch of pretty colors.
Yep.
And I saw that each of those characters had a couple, what appeared to me to be a couple of dozen of spells, and the casters were just shouting out name after name, and things were flying everywhere, and I had no idea what could possibly be going on there. And I think that's sort of WoW Arena's downfall as an esports. I don't think it's very watchable. I think unless you care about WoW Arena very deeply yourself,
which I do, which is why obviously I found that entertaining.
You watch it. Yeah. But I think that inherently limits your audience to the point where it makes it a lot less accessible, and it makes it a lot more difficult to become an esport.
So, but how come? Because you say that, and the only other game that I agree, like. So, obviously, StarCraft 2 is, like, the biggest game in esports. Anybody who tries to argue that is just a fanboy of some other game.
I disagree with you. League of Legends statistically is bigger.
League of Legends is
now it is.
StarCraft,
globally, StarCraft is bigger. I mean, yes, League of Legends.
If you count Korea, I think StarCraft, you have to say, is bigger.
It's the oldest as well.
But League of
it's
Legends...
the most set in stone, I guess.
Right, yeah. The most... well-founded, I think, esports.
Yeah. It's the oldest one.
But StarCraft, you can watch that and you can say, okay, well, they both start with a base, and then their base gets bigger, and their base makes stuff, and stuff shoots at each other, and then there's a lot of bases and a lot of stuff and a lot of shooting at each other. So, like, yeah, I can see where you can argue that it's easier to watch from a perspective of a player who's never even played StarCraft before. But what happens when you look at other super popular games like Smite and League of Legends and Dota 2, and now given those are all MOBAs, But-
that was actually the second part of what I was going to say.
Okay.
And that actually also sort of applies to COD. Because the reason I think COD is an esport and not WoW Arena is that COD, in the same way as League of Legends and games like Dota and StarCraft, solves the problem by being a lot more popular. Every 14-year-old, as we discussed last episode, has Call of Duty. That means even if Call of Duty is objectively a terrible esport, there's people who play the game who are interested in watching it.
Yep.
And that's sort of the same way that League of Legends solves it. By being free and more easily accessible than other games, League of Legends takes what would ordinarily be an extremely complicated and difficult to watch esport and makes it one that's fairly easy to watch, just because odds are you've played League of Legends and therefore you can watch and understand.
But odds are that you've played World of Warcraft. Okay? That's
Well,
the
the
biggest
thing-
MMO in history. You got to think they peaked at some odd 12 million subscriptions,
And
you got to
League of
think probably
Legends is at
15
40 million.
Is it 40 million?
So-
Yeah, but
I think
StarCraft
part of the
isn't
issue
at,
there, though-
StarCraft isn't even at 10 million, and Smite isn't even at
Well,
you
I
know,
wouldn't argue
800K.
that Smite. I wouldn't argue that Smite is one of the most popular esports.
Smite's
now,
just
I
not
wouldn't.
going to take off. As long as LoL's popular and relevant, I don't think Smite or Dota 2...
By that
or anything else.
argument, then you are arguing that there are only two popular esports, and that would be League of Legends and StarCraft 2. If you
I would agree
think
with
that
that.
it takes that much to be an esport, then you're saying that
I'm
those are
not
the
saying
two
I'm not
esports.
saying it takes that much to be an esport. I'm saying it takes that much to be a popular esport.
Well, yeah.
Well,
But-
let's kind of get this back back on the rails. So let's start to look at why are they the top esports games? Is it because it takes the most skill to play it, or is it just the most popular games because of the fact that it's easy to pick up and skillful to, like it's hard to skillfully
Right, easy
master
to play
the
and hard to
game?
master, which is what the other.
I
the other half
think
is
League of
saying.
Legends is the easiest answer because League of Legends basically does it by being free to play. It's very easy to start. It's very easy to start playing. You'll be terrible at it, but everyone else who you start playing with at the beginning is terrible at it too. So that
Right.
kind of solves the problem. And in that sense, it makes League of Legends very accessible, very easy to get into, and it makes it very big. The other aspect, of course, is what Riot itself did, which was pump a bunch of money, build an esports scene, build a game around the esports scene, and then use the game to in turn build more esports scene. So Riot executed that extremely well, and you've got to give them credit for that. But I think that the easiness of getting into League of Legends really is a key aspect of that. StarCraft is more complicated because of how old it is, and I think its age and sort of those long-term trends are a big contributor to StarCraft's success.
It's had a lot of years to kind of build, I don't want to say meta around it, but there's like a solid foundation for
a
StarCraft
stigma for
that like people know, and when you're introduced to StarCraft, it's incredibly intimidating. Whereas
Well, yeah.
a game like LoL, it's it's a 5 versus 5 game. There's 5 champions versus 5 other champions. It's a lot easier to like wrap your mind around, I guess.
That's a part of the reason why I think, for example, like what we were saying, why World of Warcraft esports never stuck. Because the thing is, World of Warcraft for so many years, from the launch, it came out being. There's a really loud noise. I can't really focus.
Yeah, who's that coming from? There it goes.
Anyways, the thing is that with World of Warcraft from the launch, I think the reason why it never stuck in the esports world is just the fact that from the get-go, it was just known as an MMO RPG. You play with your friends, you start up a guild, you raid, whatever. It never built that kind of like following of the community of, oh, this is an esports game.
It was
Kinda
never
like-
marketed to be an esports game.
Yeah, kind of like League of Legends, straight off the bat. This is esports. This is PvP, 5-on-5. Throw money at it. This is the model we're gonna go with, and that's why I think League of Legends stuck. Because on the flip side of that, you have games like StarCraft that from the get-go it was like, okay, we're gonna market this game competitive, 1 versus 1 or whatever. And I haven't played StarCraft, but I know that it's just team versus team, and you go at it, and that's what it's been known for since the launch. Kind of like League of Legends, and then Call
Red
of Duty
5
now.
is a good example. Red 5 with Firefall, they came out the gate a year ago with that video and said, this is going to be an esports game. We're going to.
There's certainly they've seen Riot's strategy. They've seen it successful and they're following it. I mean, that's the whole $1 million prize pool for 2013 thing going on.
Right.
That's how Call of Duty's taking off now. I mean, pretty much we got a game. A lot of people like to compete in our game. We're gonna throw money at it. It's gonna stick because we're a brand name. We're like Nike. We can't get defeated.
Well, because at this point, there's so many, like you guys were saying in the first episode, there's so many Call of Duty clones that
Exactly.
it's hard to become another first-person shooter on an esports scene if Call of Duty exists. Like you can't come with like a copy and paste version of the game by a different company that's not as big and backed as Activision is and become popular. That's why you've seen Halo, you've seen Gears a little bit, and you've seen COD. There's no other really big first-person shooter esports because they're not going to make it through because they don't have the backing.
Well, I mean, if you really look at it, one of the first first-person shooters to be a part of esports was Counter-Strike, and a lot of people that game is renowned for being one of the most skillful first-person shooters there is, today.
Yeah, I mean, people still say that.
Yeah, and still, Halo as well. I think part of the reason why those two games, even though they're renowned for being very skillful games, have just fallen off the map, quote unquote, in the esports scene is just because of the fact that Call of Duty just has a vice grip on the mainstream market that once they say, hey, we're going esports related too, it's gonna pretty much take over because of the fact that they're just mainstream wise, they're in control of the market. They're the #1 first-person shooter out there. So once they decide to cross over to esports, they're gonna pretty much just take over. They're gonna push aside Halo. They're gonna push aside Counter-Strike, and go to town with that. But I mean, going back to the topic.
I'm not completely sure if I agree with that because I think Counter-Strike's problem is more that it's very hard to observe. It's very fast. It's very brief.
Yeah.
And when I've watched Counter-Strike, I watched a little bit of Counter-Strike before I played it at all, and then I played CS:GO for a bit, and I watched a little bit again. If you don't play Counter-Strike, you have absolutely no clue what's going on. Because these guys are lining up, they're bouncing up and down, they're peeking back and forth around the corner, and suddenly, boom, half the team's dead, and then someone is suddenly winning.
Yeah.
Right? And the other part of that, I don't think you can say that there's a market for first-person shooters. There's a market for non-first-person shooters. I think Dota and League of Legends as games have issues because they essentially rely on the same mechanics. So I'll agree that those groups push each other out of the market very much. But I don't think you can really compare Halo and Call of Duty, just in terms of pacing, in terms of in terms of how it's watched, in terms of how it's played. They're just so different. So I will agree that Call of Duty definitely has a vice grip on the market, but I think Halo and Counter-Strike each respectively have their own problems that keep them from being successful. It's not so much that Call of Duty says, we can't have you. It's more like Call of Duty is just better, so no one is really buying it.
Yeah.
Real quick, welcome Eric, jumping in here. We are just talking about skill and skill stuff. And apparently Call of Duty and Halo. I got a little distracted there for a minute trying to get him invited, so I only caught the end of what you said, Sam. So
That's
if somebody
okay.
wants to keep it going, and then I'll... No, I mean, I heard it, but if somebody wants to keep it going, and then I'll jump in from there. And so, I mean, so yeah, easy to play and hard to master. I think it's something that we need, right? I guess the whole point of me wanting to bring this up in the first place was to kind of push that, because I feel like games like Dota 2 and StarCraft, really, games that are really intimidating when you first get in, but are really popular in the competitive fields, popular with competitive players because there's such a high skill ceiling. I think those games need to do a better job of being as easy to pick up as League of Legends and as hard to master as Dota 2 and StarCraft.
So, I think we can talk a bit about StarCraft for a bit here, because StarCraft has been having this issue for a while. It's well known. And they've been trying to address it. If you've played Heart of the Swarm, what they have now is you start playing versus bots.
Right, they have the whole training regimen. It starts you right from the get-go, moving you all the way into...
You level up against the computer. And
but I think the other thing about StarCraft is that I think oftentimes when you look at StarCraft, you look way too much at how it's played competitively versus how it's played casually. So what I'm saying about that is if you go to like a top-tier League of Legends game, right? You have a certain meta, certain picks banned, certain strategy. If you go to a lower level League of Legends game, that all completely changes.
Right.
The
meta game changes per the level.
Yeah, this leads me to a little bit of story time. So on Reddit I saw there was in the StarCraft section there was a thread about some group that was trying to open up a tournament site. So they hosted some tournament in the afternoon, and the reward for winning was like $5 in a crayon drawing from the organizer. So I decided to enter, and this time I was still in Silver League. I have now ascended to the glories of Gold League, so you don't have to call me a scrub. But
It's okay,
so I
Tyler.
entered,
Shut up,
and
shut up, Alex.
I beat the first two people who were also around silver gold by 2-raxing and then transitioning into bio with Medivacs. It was super clean because I completely screwed up the 2-raxes and then somehow managed to out-macro them anyway. The next person I faced was a former GM in Masters League.
Nice.
And I ended up watching the VOD. I ended up watching the VOD afterwards, and the caster said something that was extremely insightful. And that was, well, TheSambasti is fresh out of bronze, so maybe his cheesing skills are still up to par, and he can somehow take up this Masters League player. And that was a very insightful statement, because I was in fact playing the cheese, and since he was a Zerg, I went 4-port Banshee, and I nearly won.
Well, look
I
at
ended
the
up losing
guy.
because
I
as
think,
a Silver League player, I saw his Spire and thought it was a Spore Crawler. If I'd killed the Spire, he wouldn't have had anything to kill my Banshees with. So yeah, I ended up losing, but the point was,
right.
my cheesing skills actually were almost enough to take out a Masters League player. I had a cheese ready for him that I learned from somebody, and I used it, and it almost worked. And that's sort of the difference. When you're at these lower league games and the lower skill levels, I think what we have to realize is that you can't say, oh, these guys are just like the pros, but really bad. It's just that the game ends up being completely different. And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to ignore, yet something that's really crucial for the survival of these kinds of games. Because if everyone is just trying to be a pro but failing at it, people get depressed and they leave.
Right. What were you going to say, Eric?
Well, it's like what TheSambasti was talking about when it comes to cheese, and I think there was a guy during DreamHack, I think it was about a year ago or so, all he did was just 6-pool from like I think the opening bracket all the way to the single elimination bracket towards I think the quarterfinals or something. He just 6-pooled his entire way through DreamHack and actually placed, I think, it was decent. I mean, like this guy had no idea what he was pretty much doing. He just 6-pooled the entire way through. So I mean, it's
The
cheesing.
problem with that, though, is if that's all you're good at,
Yeah.
that's all you're good at. Like, you can't actually expect to win the majority of your games. If you learn at an early league that cheesing is the way to rise in the ranks, then by the time you get up to a league where people are actually competent, you're just going to get destroyed.
Well,
Right.
Yeah,
except
it's
for
just
more
kinda like-
competent at cheesing, right?
It's more like talking about how like it can offset, even though it may be like easy to play, hard to master. I mean, there are like certain antics that the gameplay, in my opinion, kind of has to fix in order to.
Yeah,
just
there's
completely
loopholes
block it.
almost.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
It's like, I don't remember what team it was, but League of Legends, this one team pulled out, and it was in some tournament game, pulled out Heimerdinger Jungle. Does anyone remember that game?
I think so.
Because if someone remembers it, they might be able to tell me which teams it was. Anyway, the team pulls out Heimerdinger Jungle, right? Completely crazy team comp. It was like Olaf top, and when you get into the game, everybody's wondering what the hell are these guys doing. It turns out it was a carefully crafted team comp that actually ended up winning the game by like 10 minutes. Because what they did is they took Heimerdinger Jungle, put him mid, right after like getting blue buff and red buff on 2 different people. Olaf farm top, 4 people mid, push through the middle. Olaf teleports to the bottom, pushes bottom, and basically they had this long coordinated plan of cheese, right? This 10-minute long essentially cheese strat that was just perfectly crafted to take this team by surprise, and ended up working out perfectly, right? It was completely unorthodox, but it was effective and it won them the game. So then can we call that skill or not? Because it did take at least a little bit of intelligence and a lot of game knowledge to come up with that.
I think in that example, yeah, because it takes the game knowledge, and if you're doing that in a tournament and you don't cheese all the time, then you're using that to your advantage.
In that case, what if someone else came up with that build?
I think that plays into more, it's skill when, it takes skill to know when to do that.
Right.
Like if you go back to StarCraft, like you'll typically see, even in the past MLG, someone goes down 2-0, they might try to, pull something. They're not just going to go into a macro game because that's what everyone's expecting. So they might 6-pool, or they might, proxy 2-rack somebody, or do something to get a quick win. But you kind of have to know when to do that, because if you're known for 6-pooling and that's all you're going to do, then people are going to...
I think White Raw is a really good example of that, right? Because he's known for always doing crazy builds, but he always does different crazy builds that nobody's ever seen before. And when he was at the StarCraft, the championship finals, whatever, before before Heart of the Swarm came out, or maybe it was the Heart of the Swarm event. I forget when I saw him playing, but you know, he did. It had to have been the Heart of the Swarm event because he used an Oracle, but he did a proxy Stargate with an Oracle, and he won. And it's like, but that's like White Raw, you know. And if you do that every game, you know, obviously it wouldn't work. But I don't know. I'm trying to like wrap this all into like a point, right? Because we're kind of just talking about cheese, and like,
well, here's the thing that like, this is the question that I want to bring up. When does that quote unquote cheese, you know, strategy become a valid, skillful strategy? Like, you know, you guys.
Sorry to talk real quick, but like with TheSambasti's example with League of Legends using the Heimer jungle, you're expecting a Heimer jungle though. Whereas in StarCraft, any amount of openings can happen. For like if a person's being Zerg, however X amount of openings that Zerg has. When it comes to League of Legends, if someone's running Smite Heimerdinger, you know something cheesy is going to happen. Whereas it's, you know, roll the dice in StarCraft too. Sure, you might be able to play like, okay, you know, he's 2 out of a best of 5, and he might try and pull something cheesy to either secure the win, or the person who's down by 2 will try and like put the player on tilt or try and make their way to scoring the last couple 2 just to tie it up, and then go for the 5th map. So it all depends exactly. I mean, like what type of game, like I said before.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, like I can only bring up first-person shooter, you know, relations because that's all I play. But for example, like you had a guy that would camp in a corner. Is that skillful that he's camping there, you know, strategically picking out his opponents, or is he just cheesing it up because he's scared and he's probably not playing the game right? Like, when does it become like, all right, maybe it's not cheesy, or maybe it's not OP, it's just the way he's playing is skillfully smart, like he's strategically outsmarting the rest of his opponents and therefore he's winning? Like, you get me? Like, when does it become like, or you're just like using the loopholes, or you're using like broken game mechanics to
like
win?
What's the difference between clever use of mechanics and being like a noob or being cheesy?
Well, does it matter if it actually works or doesn't work?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it works, is that him that he's skillful? Like, that player, is he a skillful player or a very strategically smart player? Or
I don't think so. No.
Clever is if you're watching it. Being a noob is when you're on the receiving end.
Well, we're talking on the level of like an eSports, you know, pro player, you know, guys that will come out, you know, you got a new patch, like for example, like what we have right now in Firefall, we got the patch coming out and people have already, you know, figured out, okay, this is the most cheesiest way to win, or we already know what's the most OP thing, you know, just like in Dota 2, whenever there's a patch, you know, all these pro players do all kinds of like scrims just to find out, okay, what's the most broken thing in this patch that we can abuse until the next patch? Like, is that them being cheesy, or is that just them being smart to the point that it's like these guys can figure out what in the code or like what in the game is so broken they're gonna abuse it, you know, to their favor? Or is it just like, no, these guys are just skillfully good, like they're strategically good?
I think that's why you need to have games. I think that's why the most successful esports games are like don't have stuff, those shining examples. Like, sure, if you're playing StarCraft in Silver League, you can get it, you can cannon rush somebody and you might kick their ass, right? But if you go against somebody who catches you or knows to look for a cannon rush, then you're not going to be successful. But well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you look at it and be like,
I'm having trouble with this subject.
It's a fine line.
Yeah,
it's
a very fine line, because it's like someone might complain on ladder, like, I'm losing to 6 pools all the time. Like, or take Idra for example. If anyone knows StarCraft, you probably know who Idra is. Idra is notorious for having in his mind like the proper way that StarCraft should be played, which is a macro style game. So anytime that he gets quote cheesed, you know, he throws a fit about it, he's, you know, cussing out the dude saying, oh, this is bullshit, like this isn't how the game is meant to be played.
Right.
But then you take someone like SKMC, who is he's earned the most winnings of StarCraft 2 over like the past 2 years. He's won something like $320,000.
Yeah, I think it's like 318.
And he's known for being the person that will do, you know, whatever it takes, whatever strat in a tournament setting to win the game. And you could argue that he is the best player in the world because he's earned the most money for it. So I think it's a very fine line between if it's just cheese or.
It's definitely a fine line. What I kind of want to get back to the idea of why, what can companies do to make their games more successful in, like, is there any way to make a game successful at esports without just being like, I have a brand name and a wallet, right? Because we said that Call of Duty, it's a brand name and a wallet. We said League of Legends, it's a brand name and a wallet. So,
well, I mean,
and
obviously
easy to get,
there's more to it.
Pick up.
Obviously there's more to it. Are people willing to watch it? Are people willing to play it? Are sponsors willing to pay you to watch it?
What it all comes down to is the community.
I mean, pay you to play it, sorry.
Like, the community of the actual players, like, who the game targets demographically. I mean, like, if you're going to have, like, a competitive chess game, I mean, let's be real. Like, some My Little Ponies competitive version of it, I mean, I don't think anyone's really going to play that. But, like, when it comes to Call of Duty, if you think about the demographics for video games in general, target the male teenage demographic. And obviously, those are the ones competing in the esports right now. If you have a large enough people, and FPSs have been around how long?
Yeah.
I mean, so when they're targeting that specific demographic, that's when you're able to find, is this game proper? What are we doing right, wrong? As soon as you get the build up with the community, with the casual players, obviously you'll find the people who want to find out who is the best. And eventually tournaments will be made. It'll start snowballing and turn to $10,000 tournaments to $100,000 prize pools, and it'll just keep on growing to like $1 million world championships like they did for League of Legends and Dota.
I guess we
Dota
can...
2, the beta tournament was $1 million first place prize pool.
Yeah. And then
Which
they
was
had
insane.
Another one. Yeah. I mean, like, Dota's been around like since ever. I mean, it's not really a new game, I guess you can say. I mean, Dota's been around.
But it is because it was an add-on. It was a custom add-on for Warcraft 3.
Game.
And even though Valve brought on the maker of the custom game to work on Dota 2,
like Ice Frog or something.
Yeah. Even though they brought him on, I guess one point is that Valve was the perfect company to do it, right? Because everything Valve touches is gold. But
pretty much.
yeah, I mean, we've talked about that plenty in the first episode. But I mean, why? I'm having a terrible time this episode.
Why hasn't it worked with Dota and it has with League of Legends?
Right, and because, and you can argue that the name recognition for Dota is so much stronger, right? Because people have been playing it since like line or something. It's been over a decade.
I almost want to say it was the timing of Dota and the exposure that it got.
Yeah,
because everyone that played Dota on Warcraft 3 loved it, and then League of Legends was introduced, and by the time that Dota 2 actually got into consumer hands, LoL was so popular.
Consumed so much of the original Dota fan base too.
It also comes down to like the legacy, I guess you can say. When you have Counter-Strike, right? It started out with the 1.5, before, back on One ID, if anyone remembers that. And then it grew to 1.6, and then it went to Counter-Strike Source, and then went to CSGO. Like, everyone's CS Pro Mod for a little bit. Everyone's just trying to find the next bet. Like, Counter-Strike was played for a decade roughly, competitively, before something else actually started to come up and take the reins for a chance. I mean, same thing with Call of Duty. You have Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, it just continues on, and the community just snowballs into that later game. With Dota, they already had an existing community for X amount of years, whereas Riot just comes out of nowhere and does a copycat somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of in this case specifically, they kind of, Riot kind of pretty much just snatched it right out of their hands, they had this large... Go ahead.
I think this is a good point that we're making, and I just want to label the point so that we actually understand what we're pointing out here, which is the fact that even though Dota has been around for so long and had that kind of snowball fan effect, I mean, obviously it kind of fizzled out, right? Because not a lot of people are logging into their Warcraft 3 account anymore. But you have that established name. That was, if you were a PC gamer during that time, then even if you didn't play Dota, you knew what it was, right? You had heard of it.
Yeah, it's if you were to describe League of Legends, you'd be like, oh, what's League of Legends? Like, oh, you remember Dota?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you would say. I mean, because it's been around for so long.
And everybody knows it. So when I look at Dota 2 coming out and getting the exposure that it did, and then I look at League of Legends, and I question that by saying, you know, we agree that the reason League of Legends exploded the way that it did is because Riot marketed it as an esports game and threw a ton of money at it, and kind of let the community and the game catch up with that, right? And to work with that. Whereas you look at Dota, that already had kind of that established name, right? And like, if League of Legends has never come around, how famous would have Dota, or how popular would Dota 2 be? And why did throwing money at it and using some good marketing techniques beat out something that already had an established connection? Because you can argue the same way, you can look at Dota and Dota 2 the same way you can look at Call of Duty and something that might take the reins from Call of Duty. Like, what if tomorrow a first-person shooter came out that was like, let's throw a bunch of money at it and market it as an esports game, and then a year later you're like, Call of Duty, what? I played this game. Like,
well, we kind of see that we've seen that already happen in the first person shooter world. You know, you've seen Counter-Strike come in, take over the reins of the esports scene, and then you had Halo come in after a set while, and then now you have, you know, Call of Duty taking the ropes from them. So it's kind of like been a baton being handed off generation to generation. And then, you know, at least in my opinion, I think Dota had its hardcore following, and they just slipped up, and Riot came in and snatched it and said, hey, you know, like, we're going to take it from here. We're going to promote our game as an esports game. And if you truly, you know, look at it, you know, Valve did this thing with the creator of Dota, you know, saying, okay, we're going to help you, you know, rebrand it and, you know, carry it over and let it be its standalone game. I mean, truly, it hasn't been marketed like how Riot has done with League of Legends. It's just been literally like, okay, we're still, because I mean, a lot of people forget this, but Dota 2 is still in beta. You know, like, it's still, you need a beta key to get in, and it's still under beta because it's still being, a lot of things are still being transferred. And it never really has made a push of like, okay, we're gonna like start marketing this as an esports game. It's just been brought up to the scene because it's like, hey, League of Legends is doing this too, so a lot of the, you know, same sponsors and the same community people from League of Legends have just been like, okay, why not do this with Dota as well? You know, a lot of the same sponsors you see for League of Legends are the same sponsors you see in Dota 2.
Right. So you're saying that when Dota 2 is finally released, we might actually see.
You're gonna see more of a competition. I think you're gonna see League of Legends and Dota 2 really be, you know, kind of like the Apple and Google for esports.
OGN just got them picking up Dota 2, didn't they? The last like 48 hours, if I remember correctly.
I don't know.
Or GOM, I think it was.
I wasn't
GOM?
sure.
Excuse me.
I wasn't sure if that was Dota or League of Legends.
It was Dota 2. It was just like the last 48 hours. SP Gaming had a link on their website about it.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is Dota. So GOM TV is hosting Dota tournaments right now. But I think sort of going back to what problem did League of Legends solve better than Dota, I think the answer is as simple as it's been this entire time. It's the whole issue of getting viewers. League of Legends is easily accessible, which means it's easy for it to get viewers. If I want to watch a Dota match, and I have tried watching Dota matches, so I try to follow as many esports as possible. I don't understand what's going on because I don't know the champions. I don't know the meta, right? You sort of need to understand that in a MOBA in order to understand the esports, to understand the casting. Well, I tried playing Dota as well because I have a beta key. They're not exactly hard to get. And I couldn't. It was extremely difficult. I'm pretty sure...
So can I just bring that back real quick and make the point of how easy to play and hard to master is good for esports, right? Because that's like the perfect example. Because I feel the same way. Like, I don't want to play. I don't like Dota 2.
You need accessibility. Accessibility is key.
Right, and the fact that you know, people honestly talk about how like, I hear casters and stuff at tournaments and like on their streams and stuff talk about how they want to make the game accessible to people who don't play it. But, like, I don't know really anyone who watches esports for games that they've, like, never picked up. I mean, obviously, like, you might watch, like, one or two games as an example to see, like, maybe if you like the game. Like, Sam, you said you watched Dota and then you tried to play it. But, like, you don't watch Dota now. You know what I mean? You're not, like, a fan. Like, I watch StarCraft 2. I watch Husky and Day 9, like, every day, right? And it's because I like StarCraft 2 and I understand it. And I watch Smite games every other day, right? And it's because I like that. And I can watch a League of Legends game.
I watched quite a bit of StarCraft before I actually bought StarCraft and started playing it.
So what makes a game accessible to people who don't play it and actually want to sit down and become a recurring fan of a game, as opposed to like maybe League of Legends, where we're saying that you need that accessibility, the ability to log in and play, so you can be like, oh right, okay, so this champion does this.
Well,
this champion is
like we were talking about before the show, the personalities, like the personalities of the caster. You mentioned Day 9 and Husky. People look for that at StarCraft tournaments, like League of Legends tournaments, StarCraft tournaments. Regardless, who the good casters are.
Right, but like World of Warcraft has good casters. And you don't, like when Sam said, he watched WoW Arena and said he saw pretty colors and heard crazy names. It's the same thing if you watch Husky or Day 9. I mean, I guess StarCraft has a little bit. Tanks are referred to as tanks, and Marines are referred to as Marines, but I mean, get into Zerg or Protoss, and you're like, what's a Phoenix? What's a Tempest? You don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, watching it is fairly self-explanatory. It's like, oh, this guy built 5 Tempests, and then the screen is looking at 5 giant starships that are shooting huge balls of plasma. And I do want to say why I ended up watching StarCraft. And I do have to mention that I guess I'm probably the exception to the rule, because like we discussed last time, there are certain gamers, certain people who are looking for something interesting for a challenge, and certain people who want sort of the easier route. And for me, it wasn't because of one specific personality or one specific caster. What appeals to me about StarCraft is that, to me, StarCraft is like strategy in its purest form. It's a game. It feels more like a game of chess, right? You can feel the excitement building. You can see the moves they're doing to prepare, and then it all just comes to head and it ends essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me about watching League of Legends, and the reason I watched StarCraft while even playing League of Legends, was that League of Legends games are funner to play for me, or were funner to play for me than StarCraft. But watching League of Legends for me was just so slow and so boring.
Right.
And in that sense, although I played more League of Legends at the time this was going on, and I didn't even have StarCraft, I liked watching StarCraft because it was just an interesting thing to watch. It made intuitive sense when you were watching it, even if you didn't play the game, and it was just exciting.
Right. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, that's a lot of people have that. Sorry, real quick. A lot of people have that complaint about League of Legends is that because of the way the game is structured, it's harder to see the skill of the player from a viewer standpoint than it is for StarCraft, because there's certain like key elements that you can pick up on almost immediately, and you don't really see as much of that in LoL because you see people last hitting. It's a lot slower pace, and you can't really tell. Like if someone just came in and was like, "Here, watch League of Legends," you'd probably get bored because you can't really like see the level of skill of the player.
Right.
But that was just a little point.
Go ahead, Eric.
It's like there has to be a balance between it. I mean, I don't care if you get like John Madden to like commentate World of Warcraft or League of Legends or Dota, and if I've never played World of Warcraft or League of Legends, I'm not gonna know what's going on. I mean, like, you can have Total Biscuit running his mouth at like 100 miles an hour, and you won't understand a single thing. Like, oh, okay, so this glowing effect is hitting that dude. Or like when you watch StarCraft 2, you see 2 giant blobs, you got a bunch of squishy aliens versus some robots, and it's like, they don't know what the hell is going on. They don't know how significant it is for Hellions to take out Zerglings in the early opening stages. They don't know how significant that can be.
But you do see a very basic animation, right?
Yeah, like
because people know that fire is bad, and that when something makes a gurgling sound and turns into blood, it's dead. So
but they think though, like, it's one Zergling or it's 1 or 2 Zerglings compared to like the end game where they have like 30, 40, 50 some odds.
And people can see that comparison too.
But I think in that sense, like, this is where I think good casting comes in. Because StarCraft casters are very explicit about what's going on. It's like, these Hellions are driving around killing the Zerglings, and that's giving him map control. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's very self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's the same thing with, what's it called when Quake Live was around. Like, at first, or Quake in general, the casters would always have to explain why it's so difficult. Like, they'd always say, like, okay, the timers that you see on the screen, the players don't see that. So they have to mentally time the red armor, the yellow armors, the mega health, and they have to keep that in their head. Otherwise, you're just seeing a bunch of guys running around with a clock on the side of their monitors, being able to time items no problem. Right. So unless the shotcasters are actually doing their job and like explain the game while things are going on, then I think it can be no problem. But also, there's a bunch of I guess you can say like minor details that the viewer who's like inexperienced towards the game doesn't know. Like in my opinion, though, personally, like if a person was to try and like watch a stream or something like that, because that's also where you get exposure for the game. It's not just from the tournaments, it's also from the streamers and also the casual players that watch it. Because there's not always a tournament going on. It may be like a cup or a league or something like that, but it's not always widely broadcasted. So you have like RTV for gaming. I guess you can say like our TV channel is Twitch.tv. It's like the MTV for gaming, I guess you can say.
Right.
So if you have StarCraft, a person were to log on, like my dad were to hop on Twitch TV, he'd be like, okay, what the hell is a StarCraft 2 while the guy's just playing? So obviously you have like RTS games, which are a bit more complicated, and then you have FPSs, which are the basic, okay, that's an enemy, you shoot them. It's like Counter-Strike. I guess you can say like the different type of game genres pretty much decides how, if a person wants to watch the game or not. And like it's like comparing rugby to football. Obviously football's a bit easier to watch than rugby is.
I could speak from first-hand experience. I mean, I've never played StarCraft ever.
Yeah.
And watching
you're fired.
watching
a show.
Watching a stream was kind of like the first time I saw a League of Legends stream. I was like, dude, all I see is colors and stuff moving around. And the same thing with the Dota 2 stream.
Well,
I was like,
I play League of Legends and all I see is colors during team fights. So
all I saw was like, I mean, Dota, League of Legends, and StarCraft, and even the World of Warcraft one. I was like, okay, I hear people shouting, things happening, and colors flying around.
Yep.
And
you see the health bar going down.
Yeah. I mean,
And-
honestly, that's really what it is, right? Even when I watch World of Warcraft now, I was a competitive arena player. I was huge into World of Warcraft for years and years and years. And I, like Sam said, I sent him a specific video. I know to this day that my favorite arena match is the second game of the 2010 BlizzCon Finals with Team Skill Captain. Yeah, that's the one. Like, I mean, and I know that, and I remember exactly how that match goes down every time. I've seen it like 10 times. I love it. But
I still have no idea what exactly
But
happened.
even though I know everything that the caster's saying and it all makes sense to me and I know what all the colors on the screen mean, half the time I watch that stuff, I'm still just looking at health bars.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is it a problem then of, I guess, the viewpoint of the game, like how zoomed in a WoW arena match is versus like a top-down view of either StarCraft or LoL? So I feel like that makes that easier to follow. In WoW, especially, I don't know, as of Lich King and Cataclysm, spell cleaves, I mean, you played,
Right.
spell cleaves became the dominant teams, and it's all about just rushing in and bursting people down. So, I guess all the colors that everyone's saying they're seeing, it's harder to look at a closer up view of a bunch of spells going off than if it was like an overhead view,
I think
LoL.
WoW Arena can be zoomed out enough. I think it's a matter of I don't necessarily think that when you see the colors you need to know like what spell, like you don't need to have the tooltip memorized, right?
Yeah.
But I think you need to understand that
Probably, yeah.
if somebody's voice, if a good caster is getting louder and louder with the build-up of stuff, you can pair that, right? Everybody's brain is smart enough to pair that with seeing a health bar go down more quickly than the health bars were going down before, and there's more spell effects going on. So you can kind of put that together and say, okay, well, the caster's getting really excited, and he's saying all this stuff, and he's saying a lot of spells, and I'm seeing a lot of spells, so I know that what he's saying applies to what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing that these health bars going down, and I'm matching the names on the health bars with the players that I see casting the spells. So you can kind of, once you've watched maybe one match or two matches, you can kind of start to put all that stuff together and really say, okay, well, I don't necessarily know exactly what's going on, but I can understand. I get it enough to watch. It's like people watching football who don't know anything about football or hockey or anything. You know what I mean? Because if you watch football, think about it. If you don't like football, if you're a wife, right, or something, or you don't like football for whatever reason, you watch it and all you see is a bunch of colors running around and a ball, right? It's the same exact concept.
Yeah.
Same concept. I think games have a little less readability than a football field or a tennis court, but it's the same concept. And so I don't know. I think the real question that I want to ask is it every major sport there's a competitive division, but every major game there isn't. And so should there be? Why isn't there? Etc. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on there? Why haven't games? Because if you go to Korea, there are broadcast television shows that just play StarCraft for 24 hours a day, and there's it's so big over there that people know it the same way football or tennis, and so.
But I think that's more of like a cultural thing, though.
Yeah, that's just like a cultural / generational thing. I mean, if you really look at it, games have only been around for like 30 years. Like since the early 80s, maybe. Mid 80s.
Yeah, because computers weren't.
Yeah, and then you have sports that have been around since back in the
competitive Pong.
You have you have sports that have been around since the Romans and the Greeks doing all kinds of challenges and stuff.
Right.
And I mean you have more like commercialized mainstream sports now, but like they've been around since the original Olympics. It's just like it's cultural and generational. It's become a thing that's accepted. Video games is it's still looked at as like, oh, that's for nerds. I mean, slowly it's changing now. Now it's
actually,
more...
is it? Slowly
it's still
changing?
For nerds, but it's just becoming that being a nerd is cool.
Did anybody see the Kotaku video like 3 days ago? That was showing this video compilation. What was the tournament? There was a MLG Dallas, right? I'm sure everybody here...
Like the one that just happened?
Right, the one that just happened. I'm sure everybody here watched one of their favorite games at MLG Dallas. God knows I watched 2 days worth of StarCraft and had a blast.
Absolutely.
Some people watched Call of Duty. Some people were watching other games. League of Legends was there. So I saw this video that Kotaku put up 2 days after MLG Dallas ended. And it was a compilation video of clips from all the major news stations, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, Fox, all the major TV stations, focused on one thing. They all covered MLG Dallas. They didn't cover the fact that there were games. They didn't cover any of that. All they said was, girls are playing video games now too, apparently. And go watch it. It's like, I'll put the link down below in the comments section. And it's the craziest thing. It's literally... What?
That sounds very gender-ish.
No, but the point is that I think that people... It's not nearly as big as we think it is yet. Like, it's getting there.
eSports?
Or the view on gaming and nerds in general. Because, I mean, these people were so blown away. Like, just taken back by the fact that girls were at MLG Dallas.
Well, because we're used to it.
If I tell friends and family I'm in eSports, right? The first thing they think of is a bunch of kids sitting in their basement, right?
Yep.
Like that's the impression.
That's what it is.
That's what I get every time someone learns that you're a gamer.
Yeah, exactly.
They just think that you're in your parents' basement in a dark cave, like playing by yourself.
Even after I've explained it more specifically to my close family, like exactly how it works, how big it is, like the numbers, right? Still, no one quite understands what it is until there was this one StarCraft video. This is eSports. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I saw that YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. The one where they like show the scenes of all the crowds and all the teams and everything. Until I sent them that video, they didn't understand. They couldn't comprehend that this was an actual thing. That this wasn't kids in some basement exchanging money over video games. That this was actually like popular.
Right.
So I think the preconceptions that people have about esports in general mean that we aren't that big yet, and until we get big, like just explaining what this is to people, because it is so new, is something that's incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, again, though, it depends on your location, because if you're in Seoul, South Korea, everyone surrounding you is going to know exactly what StarCraft 2 is. But, I mean, some of the videos that, like you said, This is Esports video, some of the best moments for StarCraft 2, if you show someone, like, the stadium that DreamHack 2011 was in Sweden, or you show Thorzane's win of DreamHack last year, just, like, the hype as soon as he won that tournament, like, the music blasting, the crowd going crazy, endless cheering for him. Like, you show somebody that, and I guess it kind of helps them understand a little bit, but like we see that and we're used to it. Like that hypes us up. I know I get hyped when I see someone win, but I don't know.
We think Eric's mic is muted.
Oh shit, it was.
There it is.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, so were you trying to say something?
Let me think real quick. I'm trying to remember.
Okay. So
Just continue on. I'll bump in.
right. So I get this like message in Skype. I'm like, what?
Why is everyone ignoring me?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. So where are we on the path to getting to that point in the U.S.?
I mean, just look at StarCraft 1 esports versus it now. I mean, it's grown through leaps and bounds. It's gonna be a while before I think it really takes off. But as soon as somebody like ESPN or some kind of TV channel takes note of it and decides like I'm gonna put airtime in for this.
That actually happened already.
Oh, it did. All right. Well, then I'm just
Didn't save esports, huh?
CGS, the biggest flop of all of esports.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
What happened?
CGS was an experiment. I guess you remember like Team 3D and Team Complexity back in the day with 1.6. Well, they had the CGI, I think, the Gaming Championship Invitationals, where they brought in like the best teams around the world. They had 1.6, Battlefield, Dead or Alive, or something like that, and they hosted on TV, and it was a hit supposedly, quote unquote. And then they made a series called the CGS Championship or Champion Gaming Series, something like that, where they had franchises across the U.S. trying to make like your Colorado Avalanche, your Detroit Red Wings. They tried making franchises. In this case, they had 3D New York, LA Complexity, Dallas Venom, and they would all compete in Counter-Strike Source, Dead or Alive, Project, some racing game, and a couple other games too. And they would try to make
FIFA as well, I think.
Yeah, they would try to make it some like TV event, and it was doing okay for like the first bit, but there was some back deals, I guess you can say, with a certain individual that made this huge, like Angel Munez and his group of people kind of had like their fingertips dipped into it, I guess you can say, and that's what made everything fall apart. Because you'll know about how like CPL owed a bunch of money to their players and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, in this case, the people who were behind that were also involved with CGS. So with CGS, like they got on DirecTV, they ran TV shows on DirecTV, and they had their players getting paid, I think, like $30,000 a year. Like all the players were being paid that much and also living like 5-star hotels on the beach and everything. Everything was paid for them, and all they had to do was just play games, be on TV, play in front of a crowd, no problem. Yet CGS flopped. So, I mean, it was a huge setback because I remember, like, Jason Lake, the manager of LA Complexity, he actually sold his law firm, I think it was, and moved his family from, like, northeast the U.S. to LA in order to invest everything into CGS, and it just died.
That's how EG became big. They weren't involved, so they were the only team left standing for a while.
Because all the players...
Uh-oh.
I think something happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, in that case, I'll sort of continue where he left off. The big thing with that, of course, is, and this might be a different idea than what he was getting to. I'm not psychic, so I don't know exactly what he was going to say. But the big deal with that, of course, is now you have TV producers, and they say, I'm going to put on esports, and, well, they already have tried putting on esports. So in a way, having tried it and failed is worse than having not tried it at all. So that's a pretty big setback.
So, but how come we have channels like G4, right? Like
G4 is not a gaming channel anymore, though.
We used to have them.
Yeah. Like you can't.
Let's let Keck finish his thing. What were you going to say past that?
It was just saying that, like, when it comes to esports with the DirecTV, I mean, it failed and it kind of set things back, and EG was able to capitalize that luckily, and luckily StarCraft 2 came out. ESWC, IEM was still alive. Like, the next best thing to CGS was pretty much the Intel Extreme Masters series, which also carried along the 1.6, picked up StarCraft 2, did League of Legends towards the end. It just, like, there's other tournaments out there, ESWC, WCG, eventually it maintained. Yeah, it maintained what's it called, esports for a while. Also MLG being around still, and like as soon as CGS died, MLG came up and started doing their thing. Like it was getting pretty big, and then from there it just went on.
I mean, I feel like MLG's our best bet at this point.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I
Yeah.
It's the
stand
most
with-
marketable.
I hate to say it too, yeah, because I'm not
As shitty as their tournament structure is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's like only that. I think it's also just the fact, like what we were mentioning earlier. It's slowly becoming accepted to being a nerd. You know, being a geek is okay. It's not like, oh, you're a nerd, ill. Like, you're a geek, get away from me. You know, it's like, you know, just like recently, like in the last 5 years, you know, you have the iPhone blowing up, and that's, you know, opening even more doors to people being more open about, yeah, I'm technologically inclined, like I'm technologically capable.
But I still feel like part of me still feels like the only reason that being a nerd or being a geek, and this is like totally derailing the topic here, but I think that
We're way past derailing.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think the only reason that is a thing still is because people are realizing how important it is to need to know somebody smart. Okay? And what I mean by that is that technology is advancing faster than people are willing to keep up with it. So there's people like us who keep
Yeah.
up with it, and then when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I got an iPhone," and you're like, "Oh, I can literally teach you stuff you never would have imagined about that device," then they think you're cool, right? So I don't know. But back on topic. There is no topic for this show. Let me just go ahead and
We've
throw
been
that one out.
way off
right
topic since the first
Yeah.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, going back to it being an esports thing, you know, popping off. I mean, that's just gonna come with time. I mean, you're talking about a genre, if you will, still in its infancy. Like, it's still so
Yeah.
early in the
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
for this.
CGS was very clearly rushed. I mean, when you think about it, like now that we look at it in retrospect, hindsight is 2020. But when you think about it in retrospect, the idea is just completely stupid, right? You take all these teams, you see, ooh, these guys have sort of a following. People are interested in esports. So rather than doing
Make a quick
esports,
money on it.
yeah, we're going to transplant them and try to do it like regular sports. We're going to take teams that compete in a digital arena and stick
Yep.
them in a random city and name them after that city.
Yeah.
What could go wrong, right?
They're so totally different in every way that, like, you can't just expect esports to be anything like football or basketball. Like, you just can't look at
And
it
then
the
again,
same.
there are gaming houses with coaches, and it's moving
like-
in that direction.
To
Well,
go
I mean,
against that, they have like ESWC where like you represent your country and stuff like that. Same with WCG, but also like with CGS, they also ruined it because with Counter-Strike Source, everyone knows that Counter-Strike is played first to 16. You start with $800, 15 each half. A lot of people know that who's played Counter-Strike. In CGS with Source, they made it I think first to 9, and you start with I think it was either 8,000 or 16K. And the round times were like 1 minute 25 seconds instead of like your typical I think 2 minutes and something. So like they really changed the game mode and around that entire series. And even though they changed it around, they cut off most of the rounds in that game just for TV to make it fit in the episode. So it's kind of what they're trying to do on TV. They rushed everything also. In the sense of that, they ruined the actual game and how.
Right, like for a StarCraft game, you need to set aside like an hour, right?
Yeah.
Because of the just in case. Like, you can't say, okay, well, if we're going to make StarCraft, we need to there's a 25-minute marker on there because we need commercial time. And
Yeah.
because, I mean, if you think about it, a 22 minutes of play plus commercials equals the time of a normal 30-minute TV slot. And you can't.
So,
If you want to, you know, really look at it how mainstream media does it, like, have you ever thought of why when you're watching a TV show on like commercial TV, I'm sorry, on cable TV, there's always like 5-minute increments, you know, between what you're actually watching and then commercials and then the show? Like, it's because I guess people psychologically can't, you know, sit there and watch something for an hour. Like, yeah, like we as gamers, we can, because you're watching a stream, you're watching a 45-minute to an hour-long match. You know what you're getting yourself into.
Yep.
But now, like, a casual person that's just, like, watching TV on the fly, you know, channel surfing or whatever.
You're gonna lose their attention.
Yeah, they're watching, like, 2 to 3 minutes, and then you have a commercial, and then you're watching another 2 or 3 minutes, you know, because it's just that attention span. It's
You
psychologically
could never do
made
that
that
with
way.
StarCraft.
Like, that's a
League.
part. That's another reason why it probably just hasn't caught on. Like, that psychological factor hasn't been found to appeal to the masses, not just gamers or people that are into tech. It's
I think for it to be successful on television, like let's say MLG bought a TV station, right? Let's say they did that. Then what you would have to do is you would need first of all, you couldn't have like the channel for League of Legends and the channel for StarCraft or whatever. What you would have to have is like a TV guide, right? That says from this time slot to this time slot, you're gonna watch a StarCraft tournament, and from this
I
time
have a
slot,
question here. Why does StarCraft or why do esports have to go on television?
they don't have to.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The internet.
Would agree that digitally is by far a better medium than television.
Oh, yeah.
I think most of us who follow esports are at the point where we watch a lot of television on our computers as well.
I watch.
Yeah.
I don't even watch. I don't even
I
have cable.
barely ever watch TV.
Yeah, because the problem you bring up, Tyler, the whole blocking issue of you're forced to watch a 2-hour StarCraft tournament on this esports channel, whether you're into it or not, is exactly the problem that would prevent esports from being successful on TV, and exactly the problem that having it online solves.
Well, I don't think
right?
so, because you don't want to watch if you tune into Fox at any given time of day. Let's say I really like a comedy show on Fox, and I turn in at 4 p.m. and it's the news. I'm not going to be pissed that it's the news. I'm just.
But you're not going to watch it.
But you're going to know the same way that Fox says news at 11. They're going to say League of Legends tournament at 10. You know what I mean? So like you're still gonna, even though the time would be blocked out. Now I'm not arguing that it should be on TV at all, but I'm saying
but news at 11, that's news. That's a daily thing.
Well, I mean, look, you have House, you have Bones, you have Prison Break and Lost,
Right.
how it used to be back in the day. I mean, you have these shows, like, you would line up, like, you would schedule every day, like, okay, what's on tonight?
right.
Yeah.
Oh, the StarCraft 2 MLG Finals are on. Oh, the highlight from 2012 is on tonight. I mean, and also,
Right,
like,
and you would
the
plan
whole
around
thing about
that.
being on TV is also you have to run ads. I mean, how else are you going to pay for the TV? Or the
Well, I
TV
mean, that's
station
exactly
itself?
what streams do, though.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, not really, because I don't think MLG runs their own revenue system, do they? Or they just have, like, some back...
Well, they run through Twitch,
Oh,
and Twitch
yeah.
has ads, and then
Yeah, I suppose
they
And
have
they have
sponsors.
And
I
they
wouldn't
run
know
ads
I have
for their
ad blocker.
sponsors.
You can't block ads on Twitch, well, unless you pay for it.
What?
Well, yeah,
No.
you can.
You can.
You don't.
That's
And
exactly
it's
what
terrible.
ad
You're
block does.
killing esports, man.
Let's
Killing
talk
esports.
about this off air, and I'll show you how you can.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
No! You're killing esports, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you're serious about supporting it, though, don't run ad block if you're watching a stream.
Yeah.
Because that's just...
Well, I don't click on the ads, so I don't help anyway, but...
You do.
No, like,
it's
just
actually.
the view.
just-
I mean,
It's just the viewers.
Yeah,
Twitch-
Twitch-
Twitch pays out based on however many views that particular ad gets. So if you have 30,000 viewers and 20,000 of them have ad block going, your viewership doesn't mean shit.
You
Because
only
you're
get
actually only
paid
getting
for 10.
10k people seeing it.
Yeah.
Cool, okay, well, back on the rails, but yeah, sure.
What rails?
Yeah, what rails? I don't know what happened here. Maybe 5 is too many people, or maybe I just need to not be
No,
tired
I
before
think
this.
our
Easy
topic
to play,
is
hard
skill
to
in video
master.
games. I'll be honest. I'm gonna say we answered the topic question of skill in video games and skill in esports within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the show. And that is, in order to be a successful esport, a game has to be easy to access but hard to master.
Right.
And otherwise, well, they'll have some hardcore viewers.
And you need
anyway.
and you need some
At the
good
end of the day,
casters.
it doesn't matter too much. So
Well,
that was the answer to the question.
what about what we were discussing earlier? What about, do you need to have skill in a game for it to be successful? Like, how are casual games? How are
You just
casual
get people
games
to
so
play the
popular?
game. It's very simple.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You just
saying.
get
Like,
people to play the game.
you just need to have that fun factor. Skill doesn't matter. Like,
I mean, a
Oh,
lot
are we
of us
talking
play
about
games,
competitive?
right?
no. I'm just saying, like, how are, like, okay, we've talked on the whole esports, professional, very skillful, high level end, gaming. Now, on the other realm of this, you have the, Angry Birds, for example, tic-tac-toe games, mobile games that just appeal to everyone, very low skill based
That's-
games. Like, how are those games successful?
Doesn't that answer your own question? They're
Yeah.
low skill. They appeal to everyone, so people play them.
That's
I
why I
mean,
was
there's
asking if
nothing
it
wrong
was
with a casual
in
game.
terms of a competitive environment or not. Because if it's just in general, then no. Because
Wasn't there like the rumors that WCG would like that this because the people who sponsored WCG they wanted to make it a more mobile based thing,
Oh
so they would
my-
have like global
yeah,
tournaments on Angry
They did.
Birds.
They had like Asphalt 4, 5, and 6 competitively or some shit like that. It was a huge flop. Like they dropped like PC gaming and
Yeah,
bunch of other
because they're
games. They
sponsors.
just
I
wanted to
remember that.
because like I think it was like what Samsung and some other
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
mobile
So that
company.
I guess that answers our question about whether non-skilled games can be esports, I think.
They can.
Or whether they're appealing as esports.
I'm
Okay.
trying to think of the most ridiculous game that's ever been esports before.
Well, not many games have been esports in the first
Call of
place.
Duty.
So. Yeah, Call of Duty is pretty.
Well, I mean, like anything
Here we go
after
again, right?
Hold up, anything after Call of Duty 4, I'll agree with. But Call of Duty 4 and 2, you gotta admit they actually did pretty well.
Look, my favorite
I'm
Call of
PC,
Duty
I'm
is-
saying, not
my
Call.
favorite Call of Duty is Call of Duty 4, and I think that's more of just the nostalgia I have with that game.
See,
than-
my favorite's Call of Duty 3, and I think it's just nostalgia.
Yeah, other
People
than just
played
the
that?
form factor of.
I love Call. Dude, I have Call of Duty 3 disc right here.
People have anything
Somewhere.
before 4.
He's got a Modern Warfare 3 poster.
That exists?
As well.
Yeah, he does.
His camera up a little
He's
bit.
got it
Call
on
of
the
Duty 3.
old
That's what
Nintendo.
was so great about him bashing Call of Duty for an hour on the first episode.
Yeah.
Hey,
is
I
that
put an annotation.
glaring
Okay?
Modern Warfare poster.
Yeah, from the midnight release, no less. But like I was saying to Danny before the stream, man, that's just more proof that the marketing and the branding. You know, I was
It
there.
works.
I was there with a friend. You know what I mean? My friend was like, "Hey, I want to go to the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 midnight release," and I was like, "I have $60 and I want to go do something that involves video games. So yes, I will go stand in line at a Best Buy because it's the coolest, nerdiest thing that I could do today."
I didn't
So
even
I
buy
did it.
that shit. The only reason why I have a copy of it is because my sister's into it, and I was like, all right, I'll go get it for
Dude,
you.
I
And
have
didn't
I
even-
have Black Ops
Your
2.
sister's
I played
into
it for
it?
like an hour, but I buy
Yeah.
them because people want to use them.
Keck immediately points at the most suspect part of that entire story.
Your
Yeah, it's
sister's
like,
into-
it's like, wait, your
Nah.
sister plays Call of Duty?
Yeah, dude, my sister plays Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Left 4 Dead.
Oh.
She plays everything, and she's only 14, so. I
She
mean,
is the
awesome
future.
family, then.
She is the future.
I mean, yeah, and hey, she's actually
she-
better than me.
Does she call people obscene names on Xbox
Oh
Live
yeah,
as well?
she gets easily confused for a teenage boy, so she plays just
I've
she
been
plays
through
just like him.
I've been through there. Back,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I've been playing since '96. I was born in '91, so you do the math. I
Yeah.
mean,
Math
as
is
soon as I
hard.
get a,
It
as soon as I
actually
get a
makes
microphone,
sense, right? Because she yells obscenities at someone on Call of Duty, and then the other guy, like the college student who's also yelling obscenities on Call of Duty, because he has the maturity of someone her age, goes, "Ha! You sound like a girl."
Okay. We should totally continue this conversation off air. This has been great. I think we're over the hour mark.
We are.
I know we derailed a million times. What did you? What are
That's
you
what
doing,
the
Alex?
agenda is for.
I'm scared of you. You're doing
Oh
something.
shit!
that
I
involves
didn't mean
Google
to do that.
effects. Oh,
He
okay.
added Google effects or something. like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Anyway, you know, we did get derailed here. Next week we will have probably a more solid topic to build our discussion off of. But I was testing out, you know, how 5 people are going to go, and it was definitely fun. So thank you, TheSambasti. Thank you, Eric Collins. Thank you, Danny Lorenzo. Thank you, Alex Nieves. We are going to be signing off of Metagame Episode 2, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment down below on whether or not you enjoyed this, what you didn't like, what you did like. Just let us know, and we will see you next time.